Hey, let's talk about the power of connection. So, I have had quite the year, I would say, around this topic. I have had my spiritual awakening, which really didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but then actually became like a really big deal, kind of unexpectedly. I didn't realize how closely linked weight loss and my spiritual essence, my soul, my connection to my higher knowing, my inner knowing, my connection to myself actually was. And does that mean that I don't believe in God? I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in these religious concepts. No, it doesn't mean that. It just means that the way I see those things is not the way I saw them before this happened. And in that shift of how I now believe at every level, I came to realize that there were so many things that I did that kept me disconnected from an authentic place with other people because I had been living this truth that wasn't mine. And I didn't understand why I was doing that while I was doing it, if you know what I mean. Like I just adapted myself. I used to like with pride say I'm a chameleon. I can adapt to any situation. I can meet the need of the person that I'm with, and it served me really well. I was great at sales. I fit in with everybody. I was able to connect easily with people. But what it ultimately ended up doing is it ultimately ended up creating a situation where I was false with other people. I wasn't who I truly am because I was so busy being what the other person needed me to be. And so in that, I lost a lot of myself and I lost my voice. I lost the ability to show up authentically in every situation. And what did that look like? That looked like me saying yes when I wanted to say no. It looked like me letting all of the shoulds. I should go to this event. I should do this thing with them. If I don't, they won't invite me anymore. If I don't go to that lunch, if I don't eat that food, if I don't drink that drink, if I don't smile through the pain, if when somebody asks me, how is your day? And it's a really crappy one, I say it's a really crappy one, then I'm a downer. All of those things were just masks upon masks because what would I do? I had a group of friends at the time and they like to shop, so I acted like I liked to shop, and for a long time I thought I did, to be honest. And then I realized, oh, actually I feel really bad every time I spend money on superficial things I don't want. Not that there's anything wrong with that. If you want it, that's one thing, but it was things I didn't want. So an instance of this is one of the friends was, looking at little cute purses, and they were super cute, absolutely. And, sent out in the group chat with the other friend and I, okay, we all need to buy these. They're going to be BFF purses. And instead of saying no, I bought the purse. I didn't need it. I didn't want it. It was a couple $100s for a BFF purse. But in the back of my head, I was like, if I don't do this, I'm not going to be included. I'm going to start to get left behind. But as I started to have my spiritual awakening, and as I started to listen to my inner knowing, when I started to listen, really listen to God, universe, source, however you want to refer to the higher power. For me, it's God. As I listened to God, I kept hearing, this isn't you. This isn't what you want. Say no. And so as I started to say no, that friendship with that group started to shift. And I did start to get left out. And I did start to become a downer. And I did start standing up for my values, my ethics, what I believed in. And ultimately, it cost me that friendship. And interestingly, as I continued on this journey, I went to my very first reading with a psychic medium, and I was very nervous. I'd never done anything like that before. In fact, I'd been very hesitant to do that because of my traditional Christian upbringing. And in that reading, she said to me, many things in that reading blew my mind. She was a very ethical, talented, gifted medium. And in that reading, she said to me, this was May of 24, within a year, your entire social network is going to have changed. And you will not be friends with anybody that resembles the friends you're currently in social situations with. She didn't say it that way, but, I'm paraphrasing. And I was like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know if I like that. Like, it scared me, to be perfectly honest. And fast forward to August of 2025, and I hosted my very first Wildly Sacred table at my home last Friday. And this is something that I'm going to start offering as part of my business, which I'm almost ready to launch. It's called the Eden Shift, which I'll do a whole nother video about what that means later. But I had my very first Wildly Sacred table, and it happened on 8/8, which, if you are a spiritual girly, you know is the Lionsgate portal. And it was also the full moon in Aquarius, the Sturgeon full moon. So we had this beautiful dinner that I hosted. It was amazing. It was completely filled. There were 12 of us there. We had custom candles that were Reiki infused by this wonderful, beautiful human in my life. And also my Reiki master, Kelly, makes the most beautiful intentional candles. And we had them custom made. You can see sort of over here, the smaller one. It's burning right now. And it's called Hear Me Roar, pulling in that lion's energy from the Leo season that we're in. And I'm sitting at this gorgeous table just with flowers and candles and china and crystal, and just, we had a gold theme, and it's just sparkling, right? And I'm looking around the table, and I realized, not only am I sitting at this amazing table with these women who just take your breath away. They're so beautiful. Like, I'm not talking physical beauty, although they are beautiful, but their energy, their heart, the way they show up in this world authentically, just so perfectly imperfect, so supportive, so nurturing, so funny and brilliant. And I'm looking around thinking how lucky I am. How lucky I am to have these women in my life, to get to orbit their worlds with them. And then I had the realization that took my breath away, that I didn't know any of these women a year ago. Not one. And most of them sitting at that table, I don't go a day without talking to now. And they weren't in my life at all a year ago. And after I began standing in my truth in my relationships, as I began showing up authentically and saying no instead of yes, and not letting the shoulds dictate my decision making, and I started to lose people, I was so lonely, and I was scared, and I was like, is it even worth it? You know, is the cost of standing in my power, standing in my truth, standing for what I believe in, standing for myself, worth what I'm losing? Because I'm a girl's girl. I'm a girl who needs to be connected. I need to have other women in my life. I love my husband. I love my children. I love my family. I love these people that are in my life, but I need my friendships. And I'm one of those Sex in the City, you know, the women are your soulmates. And I'm one of those women that I need that as much as I need the other connection too. And when I was looking at that crumbling all around me, and I was sad because I have let some pretty important people in my life go because we were no longer a match. We just weren't. It was not healthy anymore. And we were headed down different paths. And that's hard to do. And we tend to compromise who we are to avoid that discomfort. But I can tell you now, everything I prayed for during that time, I sat around that table and saw authentic connection. I could say no to any one of those women, and they'll just ask me again. I don't think there's anything I could say other than a lie, which probably even then they'd be like, I get it. It was a rough day. I mean, these women are amazing, and they're my friends. They're not my friends because I've shifted who I am to fit into the mold of who they need me to be for them. They're my friends because our souls recognized one another and we found each other. And we were sitting there, and I brought this up at the table, and I said, you know, it just takes my breath away. First of all, that you're all here, and second of all, that we didn't know. But what was amazing is most of those women at that table did not know each other a year ago. And we all found each other. And some of us spend more time with one another than the others. You know, you have that in every group. You have that, and that is great. But the realization that as we were all starting to embrace our authenticity, as we were all starting to show up for one another, for ourselves, as who we really were, created the vibrational frequency to draw one another to each other, like moths to a flame, to the culmination of sitting at this table saying, how were you not in my life a year ago? How were you not in one another's lives a year ago? How did we find each other? How did this magic happen? Because I can't imagine living without you now. The hope in that, the hope for other women who aren't quite there yet in that, the power of standing in your truth. You will magnetize the people that belong to you. You will, because your souls will finally recognize one another. Because when you are masking who you are, when you aren't showing up authentically, when you are saying yes when you want to say no, when you're letting the shoulds run your life, and you're being a chameleon not only are you losing yourself, you're hiding yourself from the people who are trying to find you. And that just blew my mind. So if you're finding yourself in a tough place where you are just so desiring to not buy the BFF handbag just so you don't get left behind, and to not go to the concert you don't want to go to, or to support the bad decisions you don't believe in because you are afraid, like I was, just know that when you stand in your power, when you stand in your truth, when you start embracing what matters to you and following that, magic happens. The people who are meant for you will come to you. They will be in your path. You don't have to do anything but show up. Let me know what you think. I would love it if you'd subscribe, drop a comment, hit a like. If you have a similar story, please share. I'd love to hear it. Or if you're struggling and want to talk more about it, I'm happy to do that too. Have a great day.